morning, sunshine! Today I'm making an extra video because I wanted to end Inktober with a speed paint that I was proud of. So I'll be showing you the process of this illustration right here. Let's get right to it. For today's piece, I wanted to take it really slow and really think about each aspect before I started doing it, because that's something that I didn't get to work on during Inktober this year. Whereas I would sit down and I would have an hour to do what I needed to do, so I would rush and not think about things like color theory or composition or values as much. So what I started by doing today is I started by doing a little study of the values in the piece to decide which areas I wanted to be darker and which areas I wanted lighter, and see if they contrast well together. The reason I'm doing a study with 3 values first is so that I can determine which areas are going to be darker or lighter before I choose my color palette, because these are independent of each other in my opinion. And if I just focus on the color aspect, then I end up with a piece that if I turned it black and white, you should see where the mistakes are because there's not enough contrast. So I began with those value studies, and then I moved on to little color palettes. I have been watching a lot of videos about color theory recently, so I tried to keep those in mind, and if I added a saturated color somewhere, I made it so that a contrasting color would be less saturated to make it all work better together and to be more coherent and quote-unquote realistic, if you will. Another thing that I did that I heard a lot of artists mention helps is to add a little bit of a color throughout your entire piece. The color that I added throughout my entire piece was purple, so the greens that you see were shaded with that purple. The hair was made with that purple and a blue. I added a darker blue later to some of the purples to make them more rich because I didn't want to use just black. And that turned out to be a really good idea. My colors ended up looking a lot more richer, and I added some of that blue as well on the lilacs and on the dress just to make it really flow together so that I wouldn't be out of place for the blue to be in the deeper shadow areas. I did something similar with the red, where when I used it on her face and on her hand, I also added it to the little berries and to the lilac as well to just, again, make it more coherent, because when you have colors that come back throughout your piece in various little areas, that's when your piece really looks good color-wise, in my opinion. A thing that I did differently today as well is that I started painting before I did my line art so that I would have just I wanted to create a lower portion of a bouquet with just my paintbrushes and the inks and not think about lines and just think about shapes instead. So that's what I started by doing, and later on I added lines, but I think that it really helped that I didn't start with the lines. Another thing that I'm really happy with today is that, unlike the last video I posted, this time I actually took more care with my brush pen and did really thin lines, which I'm really proud of because they turned out pretty decent. I think my line quality has definitely improved now that I've practiced some more with my brush pen. I really like this piece, and I'm really glad that this is going to be my last Inktober speed paint, just because I am focusing on some of the aspects which I didn't have time to focus on in the other days. And I'm also using accumulation of the knowledge that I've learned across working with liquid inks for the entire month. If you didn't know, this is my first time actually using liquid inks. I've never used them before this Inktober, and I think that I did a pretty killer job for someone who's using a new medium. I think that I learned to use it reasonably well. I think I'm still too impatient, and I still have a lot to learn when it comes to letting your layers dry before working on them, or not rushing your lines. Overall, everything that has to do with patience, I still feel like I have to learn in relation to arts. This is somewhere I feel like I can get to pretty soon with a bit of work, so I'm not that worried about it. I'm pretty happy regardless. This piece had so many layers that had to dry, and one thing that I tried to do was to work on one area of the painting, and then when that was drying I'd work on another one and try not to touch it, which really worked, but I make a lot of mistakes when I work this way, so I tried not to as well. I think it ended up pretty cool. Out of all the Inktober days, I think this is the one where I was the most patient when it came to letting my layers dry. That's not something that I'm very good with usually. This is because when my layers are drying, usually I just want to get the piece done or work on it some more, or I'm really excited for the end result, so I just can't wait. And then mess up happens, and lots of wet on wet mistakes, and just bleeding, and paper breaking. But yeah, it's a process. Someday I'll be patient enough to let all my layers dry, hopefully within the next year. I think that's about all I had to say for today, and since the video is coming to an end, I'll say goodbye. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. I post art videos once or twice a week, usually on Friday and Wednesdays. So thank you so much for watching. Bye!